This agreement guarantees the absolute best value for your property.
I've heard that before. I'm not selling that quickly.
Ethan had lived on his property for 20 years without ever belonging to an HOA. Then one afternoon, a certified letter arrived demanding that he join immediately. The letter was blunt. The HOA claimed the property was now part of the association. Ethan read the demand twice, wondering how an HOA could suddenly claim authority after 20 years. Ethan reminded her that he had never signed an HOA agreement. Victoria insisted that the rules applied anyway. That evening, Ethan attended the HOA meeting to hear their argument directly. Victoria presented the board's position as though the matter had already been settled. Ethan asked one simple question. "Show me the document that put my property into the HOA." The room suddenly became much quieter. Victoria promised the documents would be produced, but after several minutes of searching through binders, nobody could immediately find the answer. Ethan remembered that his original closing documents were still safely stored at home. He left the meeting and returned with a decades-old property folder. Inside the folder was the original deed from decades earlier. Ethan immediately noticed a section he had almost forgotten about. The deed contained an old recorded provision that specifically excluded Ethan's parcel from the neighborhood's HOA declaration. For the first time, Ethan knew exactly what he was going to show them. Victoria refused to accept the deed as the final word. She told Ethan the HOA would take the matter to court. A few weeks later, Ethan received official court papers. The HOA was asking a judge to determine whether his property belonged to the association. Ethan carefully organized the original deed, previous property records, and his closing documents. He wasn't trying to hide anything. He simply wanted the judge to see the complete history. On the morning of the hearing, Ethan arrived at the county courthouse early. Victoria and her attorney were already waiting inside. The courtroom was quiet as everyone took their seats. Judge Harold Whitmore entered and prepared to hear both sides. Victoria's attorney argued that Ethan's property was surrounded by the HOA community. He claimed that the neighborhood's modern rules should apply to Ethan as well. When Ethan's turn came, he didn't make a dramatic speech. He simply placed the original deed on the table and asked the judge to read it. Judge Whitmore picked up the old deed and studied it carefully. The courtroom became completely silent. Victoria saw the judge's expression change. For the first time, she seemed to realize that the old document might completely undermine the HOA's argument. The judge asked where the original HOA declaration was recorded. Daniel opened his file, suddenly looking far less confident. Judge Whitmore compared the old deed with the HOA declaration. The property descriptions did not match, and Ethan's parcel had been specifically excluded. The mood in the courtroom shifted instantly. The HOA's confident argument was now facing a serious problem. Judge Whitmore looked directly at Victoria's attorney. Then he asked why the HOA had demanded membership from a parcel their own records excluded. Daniel searched through his paperwork for an explanation, but the documents in front of him couldn't erase what the original deed clearly established. Judge Whitmore reread the deed one more time. Then, to everyone's surprise, he leaned back and burst out laughing at the absurdity of the HOA's claim. Ethan had expected a legal argument, not laughter. He finally smiled when he realized the judge understood exactly how ridiculous the situation had become. Victoria sat completely silent. The confident HOA president who had demanded Ethan join now realized the central claim had collapsed. Judge Whitmore ruled that the HOA could not simply impose membership on Ethan's property. The original recorded deed controlled the property's status. Outside the courthouse, Ethan stepped into the afternoon sunlight with his original deed safely in his folder. After 20 years, the HOA had finally learned that a neighborhood boundary couldn't rewrite a recorded property deed. That evening, Ethan returned home and placed the original deed back where it belonged. Sometimes the strongest answer isn't a fight. It's simply having the right document. And that was the day one old deed stopped an HOA from rewriting 20 years of property history. Like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from.